Hi everybody, welcome back for this installment on French polishing the Octave Mandolin. So a lot of hours were spent sanding. So I spent the time to sand everywhere from 240 all the way up to 600. So that makes a lot of dust, and we're gonna have to take care of that before we go any further in the finishing process. So here I have a few shots of the Octave Mandolin. I think I was at around 320 at that point. And then once I reached 600, what I ended up doing is after the 600, I was cleaning up all the extra dust. So I blew up the air blown the instrument and inside as well, and took all the dust, possible specks and everything out of the instrument so they were not going to come back out as I was working on it. So like that minimized the amount of little specks of dust. And once I was happy with that, I let my shop go through a vacuum of all the dust, and that's my new unit. And I have a video on it to clean all the dust specks and to make sure everything's nice. Then after that, it was time to get the tack cloth and make sure, especially on the ebony, because even though I sealed all the ebony with shellac before I started sanding and do all the finished process, there's still like all those little grooves in the that occur naturally in the wood that the dust ended up getting to. So the best way to take it out is with a tack cloth. Did the binding as well everywhere and made sure I was going over the spruce and maple to make sure that everything was going to be taken care of. The next step is to seal the instrument. So you can see I'm using a little piece of cotton. It's 100% cotton, and I put it in a 1 pound cut of shellac that I mixed, and then I'm going to seal the whole body of the instrument, and I'm going to do that twice before I start French polishing. Okay, so I have applied 2 coats of a 1 pound cut of shellac. So the shellac is made from those little flakes in here. It's this one is the platina. I got those flakes from Stumac, and then comes with the recipe on how to make like a 1 pound cut or 2 pound cut. So what I usually do is make a 2 pound cut, and then I take let's say a cup of that and do the math, and then add the extra alcohol to make a 1 pound cut. So this is the 1 pound cut. I use this little fabric. It's like 100% cotton that's been pre-washed and everything. So this one right now is full of 1 pound cut shellac, and I'll be using that to make my little pad. So I've got another piece of cotton here, and what I do is, like, basically it's folded, then you bring it back in the middle, then you can fold and twist your little rubbing pad, and that's going to go in here for now because I don't want it to dry. So after the first seal coat that I made with the 1 pound cut, I noticed a few scratch, so it's always a good time to go back and kind of like fix up the little scratch that I could see visually. And then I resealed that, and then I waited a bit and then resealed the whole instrument for a second time. So right now the instrument only has 2 coats of 1 pound cut shellac, and that's going to be it for the 1 pound cut. So what I did with the 2 pound cut, I put it into my little bottle here, which I'll be able to count how many drops I put onto my little rubbing pad here. And then the other things we're going to need is alcohol, which is the naturalized alcohol. So it's the same alcohol you use to do your shellac, and a bit of olive oil. So it's just like kitchen grade olive oil, extra virgin, or doesn't really matter. It's to help with the rubbing action so the shellac doesn't stick on your finish. So always keep the bottles away from the instrument, just so there's no accident happening. So what I'm going to do first is the pad is already pretty charged, but it's only 1 pound cut. So usually what I'll recharge when I feel like there's no more in it, I'll put about like between 7 to 10 drops. But right now I'm going to put only 3 or 4. And then I'll put 1 or 2 drops of alcohol. Just a little dab of olive oil, especially now that the pad is pretty new, so the chance of it sticking is greater. Then you want to mix everything together so you can tap on your hand. That would take off the excess, and then you can start your French polish. So I always go in a circular motion. I'll divide my circular motion, so I'll go like with the grain and then against the grains to fill both ways. But I'll do this section first, and then I can move here and so on. So 4 sections for the back basically. We'll start at the bottom here, and you always want to keep a motion. You never want to stop. If you have to stop, just come off the side, because otherwise it's going to leave a mark from the pad. But you can go back to wherever you were at. Make sure you get the edges, because often we think we go on the edges, but we don't really do it. So right now I'm going against the grain. I got the edges again, and then I'm going to go with the grain. And you can change like your motion clockwise or counterclockwise. This will help too. Just like that. So I don't know if you can see already on the camera, but this section at the bottom is already starting to shine. And that's just the first coat of about 8 to 9 coats. So I'm going to keep working at the front here. I'm going to add a bit of the shellac.
And I'm starting to get sticky fingers, so I'll use a cloth here to hold the guitar, the mandolin, and I'll keep going. I'll do the other side here. So I'll finish the first coat, maybe get a few other shots of a different section of the instrument, but basically it's the same thing. I put 8 to 9 drops of 2-pound cut shellac. I put about 4 to 6 drops of alcohol, a little dab of olive oil, and then I just rub. So probably the top section, because it's pretty small compared to other section, I'll probably be able to do this section in one shot. But like a full-size guitar, you usually split in four pieces, but I think I can manage this one in one. And then I'll get back to you guys. So whenever you walk away, just put it in here and get it back after.
So it's really important to take your time and make sure you have very good lighting, that you cleaned up your work surface. So as you can see right now, like my bench has protection, but I vacuum my bench, and I vacuum every piece of padding that was going to be on my bench, so I would not end up with dust particle transfer on the finish and then having to struggle with that. So lighting is a good thing that you want to have. If you don't have good lighting on the ceiling of your shop, just bring extra lights to accommodate while you're working. So that helps with the reflection. Once your finish start to reflect, it helps a lot. For the neck part, it's a bit tricky where the neck meets the body, but there's a little trick to that, and I'll show you in just a little bit. But basically apply it in long strokes and go back and rub in a circle to apply the finish there.
So there's a few small areas that are going to be tricky to reach in the corners. So like on the edges here, around here, and even on the corner of the fretboard around there. So what you could do is make a smaller pad, but what I like to do is use a cotton swab, and then I'll just fold that in a few layers and then put that in here and hold it. Then I'll be able to get into those small areas with that. So this was a full bodying session. Bodying means that we're increasing the thickness of the finish. It's already dry, so like it dries really quickly, so I can put up to 3 coats today. Then I'm going to let it gas off, which means that I'm going to let the spirits evaporate, and then tomorrow I'll be able to put 3 more and so on until I'm happy with the thickness and the finish I get. So I'm going to keep working on those, and then I'll catch you guys back later.
So I'm applying right now coat number 3, and you can already see on the binding it's starting to shine quite a bit. That's going to be the last coat I'm putting on today, and then in the next shot you'll see I'm already up to coat number 9. Editing this video, I already know I put 10 coats. That's the last one I did, and like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the edges were once again the issue. Even though I was going back on them constantly, there's always, for some reason, more finish being applied to the center of the instrument, so I had to go back a few times. And so like coat number 8 was mostly put on the edges, and 9 was kind of blend everything, and then number 10 was to make sure there was no more pits and little area left. that add little depressions. Um, so at this point, I'm gonna let it gas off again. So tomorrow, what I'll do is start the wet sanding. So I'm gonna use 1,000 grit sandpaper with some oil to lubricate, and then I'm gonna knock down all the high spots. So there are little bits that are a bit higher, and I'm gonna have to clean, like make sure everything is nice and flat, and then apply one or maybe two more coats of the, probably the later, two coats of shellac, and then we'll be ready to spirit off the whole finish. So that's going to be a different video because this one is already in the upwards of 15-16 minutes. And so once again, I want to thank you guys for stopping by, and I hope you did enjoy this informative video. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And until next time, I wish you well.